and I was at a gas station in Hollywood and Bronson. And I was just crying on the phone with my parents saying like, look, I'm going to do this with or without your support, but you can either be with me or you're against me.
So if you take a walk down your beverage aisle at your local grocery store, chances are you'll find a few options for kombucha tea. More commonly referenced as just kombucha, it's a fermented drink made with tea, sugar, bacteria, and yeast that contains a variety of vitamins and acids. This is very technical.
I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
We're going there.
Okay.
And believed to help various health conditions. It's funny because I know what it's made of because I get it all the time. But if you guys didn't know, this is what it's... There's medical beverages. There's medical benefits of drinking kombucha.
Yeah, I am a long time kombucha fan. And one brand I will say that you should not miss is Health-Ade. Health-Ade, you'll recognize it because the logo is really cute. It's like a little anchor. And I am so excited that today we have with us one of the co-founders of Health-Ade, Vanessa Dew. Thank you so much for being with us, Vanessa. Vanessa actually started Health-Ade in 2012 with a husband and wife team, Justin and Dane Trout. So her journey leading to her entrepreneurial path includes first starting out with a BS in biochemistry from UCSD. So we have a smarty here with us today. And she also got her MBA from USC Marshall School of Business.
Dang.
Wow.
And she started out actually with specialty in sales and marketing in pharma. So that's her background. Very strong background to have started a kombucha company. And Vanessa actually took the brand from farmer markets, which is like kind of your local farmer markets, all the way to a nationwide recognized brand sold in 30,000 stores, including Whole Foods, Target, and Trader Joe's, which are all the places that I shop. Yeah. She's also been awarded the Next Gen Innovation Award and has spoken on her entrepreneurial journey from Singapore to New York City and actively mentors and advises young CPG companies.
Dang.
We are so excited to learn more about Vanessa's entrepreneurial journey, her path to reclaiming her identity, her motherhood triumphs and tribulations, and also her approach to health. Welcome to the podcast, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Vanessa.
Such an honor to be with other ABGs.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I feel like we've crossed paths so many times, but we've never sat down to actually talk about like your fascinating background that we all heard about just now. So excited to be diving into this conversation with you. Yeah. So like Janet mentioned, your background is in biochemistry and pharma, smarty pants. UCSD, did not we just learned that you went to UCSD along
time.
We've got some
Go
alumni.
Tritons.
Yeah.
Go Eagles. I know, it didn't even come out right. Go Eagles. Like,
Okay,
go
Boston, you could,
but we learned that obviously your key product was kombucha, which is about gut health. So that is very much aligned to your history and your learnings. What sparked the interest in science and also why kombucha?
Yeah. So science, I feel like from an early age, science and math came really easy to me. But what inspired me to get into the science world was actually my mom. She, as long as I could remember, since I'm 5 years old, was sick. She had an autohemolytic disease and always in and out of the hospitals. And I just remember thinking, like, if only I can cure her disease, like I'll be a doctor and I'll be the one to do it. So that was my initial inspiration, and science and math was just cool to me. And so as time went on, I just thought it was cool and I learned about it. But my mom eventually got better. She was just a fighter, optimistic. And so, luckily she got better. But my inspiration for curing her disease gradually devolved into something, well, I guess I should be a doctor because that's what my parents really want me to be. And it's safe and the usual Asian thing, right? So that's where I went into college studying biochem. But when I got there, I was like, oh, this is not for me. Like I was in the lab, I was pipetting. I think I meant to be. Yes, exactly. It's like, what are you doing?
I was like, I heard petting.
I'm not meant to be in a lab. So that's when I made the switch to front of house, still within science and pharmaceuticals. But kombucha actually didn't come into my life until maybe I was like 22, 23. And it was right after college. I was drinking drinking probably venti soy lattes with like 3 extra shots, super unhealthy, super high sugar. And I was just going through a lot of digestive issues. I was like, I need to find something to replace this because this is not a good, healthy, and expensive habit. And so that's when I started buying kombucha at the time to help me replace that kind of craving to drink something all day. It wasn't until 2012 that me and my co-founders got into kombucha, not because we thought it was our life's work. Honestly, were going to brew kombucha to create a hair loss product. It's a very little known story that we talk about. But we started an entrepreneur club when I was in business school, and it was to talk about different pains in society, whether it be parking spot finding. This pain was actually Justin losing his hair as a late 20s-year-old dude. And he was so depressed. And we thought we're going to create an all natural hair loss product.
This is one of the co-founders, right, Justin? Okay, yeah.
And we started brewing kombucha not to drink, but to actually brew the culture as a hair loss mask.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, and so we started brewing this for that culture. In the end, we realized we're not scientists, we're not clinicians, we're doing this in our closet. We didn't know if it was his hair or the dog's hair. So we decided to scrap that product and sell the kombucha because all our friends loved it, sell it at the farmer's market, and sold out. We kind of made more, it sold out, and 11 years later, here we are.
Was this during the wave of when kombucha had just kind of, it felt like it hit the scene? I'm sure it's been around for a long time, but I remember there was like a wave of everyone's doing kombucha.
Yeah.
Was it during that, before that, or?
It was a little bit before the peak of everyone doing it. There were probably 2 big brands that were out at that time before us, but we didn't really pay attention to them. It was like, we want to create a high quality, good tasting kombucha that doesn't make people think it tastes like feet. Because that's what people thought. And we wanted it to be a badge of coolness rather than something that's super alternative and something that was relevant to consumers, millennials, and upcoming Gen Z. So that's really the impetus for the brand position.
Dang.
How did you get it from a hair mask to a drinkable product?
Yeah, so it was again, we're making it in our closet. We're making it. In
Let me just taste this.
My dad, he literally did not know what it was in my closet, and he thought I was growing marijuana. He's like, "This is illegal." So we're brewing the culture. We're tasting it with little tasting cups, and it is a very homegrown process. If anyone's ever tried it at home, it's a very local, intimate setting that you brew your culture in kombucha, but it's hard to maintain, and that's why people just don't do it often. Janet, have you ever tried to make it yourself?
I have not, but I have thought about it multiple times because I know that they call is it the Scooby?
Scooby.
Scooby. The Scooby is the little thing. But yeah, I know that brewing your own kombucha is a very it's a thing I probably should do versus buying it all the time, right? But I want to say that also Health-Ade, I think, because I was one of those people that was a little bit more alternative and drinking the other brands, and they are I love the taste of it, but a lot of people found it to be a little off-putting. So you guys definitely made it more mainstream with the flavor profiles. So that's just something I kind of wanted to share, and it's really interesting to hear about how you were creating it in your closet. So I'm curious, what then inspired the flavors?
So because we were selling in the farmers markets, we really wanted to create that high quality product, and we were sourcing from farmers that were at the farmers markets that were selling right next to us. So it was whatever was in season. So ginger lemon is a great staple for immunity.
My favorite.
Pink lady apples were in season. Grape, pear. So whatever was there from the actual farmers is what inspired a lot of our flavors, because that we thought of ourselves at the time as a farmers market brand, and gradually that evolved as we started to hit scale with more mainstream stores. But that really was the start of our flavor creation. And then back to your point, creating flavors that were relevant to people that were a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more approachable, something that wasn't off-putting. And people were like, oh, I could get behind apple. That seems like a normal flavor.
That's so cool. I think for me, because I actually got into kombucha because more of Janet, and then I started getting healthy all the time. So just be sitting here hearing about your story is kind of insane for me to be oh my gosh, she's the founder of this brand that I consume. But I do want to take it back because I feel I want to learn more about Vanessa, you as a person. Do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about your childhood, and do you have any core memories from that time?
Yeah, so I think my earliest memory was my grandma. So my parents both worked, and we grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and so it was very far away from all the Asian things in San Gabriel. But my grandma is the one to really raise me when my parents were at work. So, I didn't go to preschool, I didn't go to daycare. She just kind of taught me grammar school of hard knocks, I guess.
Mhm.
But it was so fun because, she taught me how to count. I remember writing the Chinese words.
Aw.
She taught me how to play blackjack and poker. Like, it was fun.
Nice.
And even when I
Yes.
started school, I went there after school. So it was just the best time. And I loved hearing her stories of escaping communist China, being, socialite in Shanghai, and her stories as a single mom leaving Shanghai. Just there's such strength and like fierceness in her stories that I wish I captured them. I mean, I was a kid, so I didn't know to capture them.
Yeah.
But I just remember like that really stuck with me. And I love her cooking. Like that is a core memory that will never leave me.
That is so beautiful. I mean, I can definitely, all those characteristics you're naming of your grandmother, I can see how that is like living on in you as an individual, as someone who's like creating companies and then now mentoring individuals. So thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of our listeners also probably are very familiar with like relating, having close relationships with their grandparents, because a lot of times parents are working, and, so we develop a closer relationship with our culture and our history that way.
I guess another core memory was being the only Asian person in the San Fernando Valley. I think I was like one of 5 in my whole school.
Oh, wow.
And that shaped me very subconsciously in ways I didn't know even later on, because I feel like that made me feel different. I always felt like I was straddling 2 worlds. I would do the Chinese thing on the weekends with Chinese school and going to San Gabriel Valley. On the weekdays, I would be, going to soccer and gymnastics and whatever it was. And I couldn't do sleepovers. It was just different. And I think that eventually led me to have all these insecurities about being Asian and just who I am and being comfortable with that and being comfortable in my own skin. But that really was a memory that isn't pleasant when I look back on it, but it taught me a lot now.
I relate to that so much because I grew up in Orange County, and there are parts of Orange County where there are like large Asian communities, but that was not where I was. So being one of like 5 to 10 Asian kids in your school. And I also had the experience of weekends, go visit cousins in, the San Gabriel Valley area. So that really resonates with me. And this actually makes me think of a very moving post that you had shared on LinkedIn. In 2019, you talked about how you were going about to reclaim your heritage. You shared a quote. You said, "Your mother said to you, 'Look in the mirror, Vanessa. You are Asian. You are Chinese. You cannot hide from it. Yet you despise your Chinese heritage. You might be American by birth, but if you don't embrace being Chinese, you'll always be living 2 lives and you'll hate yourself for it.'" That is such a powerful, powerful statement. Can you share with us what led to this conversation with your mom where she would share the sentiment with you?
Yeah, it was a really big turning point for me, just my identity. Even before college, I remember thinking, oh, I don't want to go to a college that has too many Asian people. So I remember being at Berkeley on Telegraph Hill, looking around, and I said, there's too many Asian people here. Like, why is that a reason to deny Berkeley, right? And so like my mom would just roll her eyes, and she had a really soft approach usually. And so when I got back home freshman year of college and I was driving with her to San Gabriel Valley, I was just rolling my eyes, giving major attitude about all the things we had to do as an obligation. And she said this to me. And I was like, it kind of took my breath away and it stopped me in my tracks because I never heard her so emphatic about really anything. And I think she was just fed up about how I was so racist against myself and like how I grew up. And even though it's such a big part of me, obviously. And so when she said that to me, it stuck with me for that whole summer to the point where when I got back freshman year at UCSD, I remember telling my roommate, we're besties, she happens to be white. And I just remember saying like, I think I'm going to go check out this Asian business club and just see what it's about. And that really opened me up to some of my best friends today. And it allowed me to feel comfortable and validated and just really comfortable in my own skin. And that journey has obviously progressed over the last couple of years. But when I think about 2019 and why I wrote that, it was such a pivotal time in Health-Ade where we were probably doing close to 100 million at that point in sales. Our company was hitting great scale, but I wasn't feeling happy in just who I was, and my identity still felt a little bit like a hole. And so that's when I also started to invest time giving back to the Asian community, mentoring other Asian American entrepreneurs. And that really kind of sent me on the journey of really motivating me. And so that was a turning point for me too.
Wow.
I mean, I feel like in your journey too, especially I feel like within the kombucha world, for some reason, I just imagine that being a very white male potentially. Is that true?
100%.
Like world. Yes. So
Yeah.
for you to be one of the founders of this huge company, like how does that make you feel as an Asian woman in this like space?
Yeah, I mean, the beverage industry in of itself is very much an old boys club.
Mm.
And then the investor world is very much an old boys club. There's very few women, let alone very few Asian women that sit around the table. I can probably count them on like 2 hands, not even just beverage, but just total CPG.
Wow.
And it just, I remember the challenges always being mental. It was always like, can I go toe to toe with that person across the table, whether it be an investor, whether it be a prospective investor or a buyer, a customer, or because I was always kind of like, I remember going to many meetings and people were like, oh, I would go in with like my director or VP and they're like, oh, like they, I'm Asian, so I look younger than them. And so they're like, oh, is this like your intern or something to the guy? And so just always being treated like that. And I always had to find ways just to subtly make my presence known without being too overt about it. And also just mentally psyching myself up for those big conversations to know that I can go toe to toe. But it just took a lot of like, internal like pumping up to like do the thing. And it did help that I had great co-founders alongside me in this who also, even though, only one of them is female and none of them are Asian, very much we're always on the same wavelength on how to pump each other up to be the best version of ourselves in whatever we were doing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm glad that your co-founders were able to support you in that way, because I can imagine it being a very lonely and just like mentally draining journey to be sort of like the only one in the room. I think a question that I have, and I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from this, like what are those subtle things that you actually said to yourself or did to really pump yourself up in those situations?
Yeah, so like Beyonce was like a big music thing in the morning. And I learned
any specific song?
Just like Survivor, basically. I mean,
wow,
I could
yeah.
Destiny's Child
Yes.
one, but I feel like and Jumpin' is usually a good one. So I guess I should say more Destiny's Child. Beyonce was more of like my emo times when I needed to like just unwind. But in the morning, I would also do these things called power poses. So it's like, you're just kind of in the mirror going like, I got this.
I love that, yes.
And then I didn't start it until I was pregnant with my first, but these affirmations. So I started reading affirmations when I was pregnant, but I continued that after that for like 3 years that I was still with the business, because those affirmations don't just apply to pregnant women. It's actually to anyone. Like you can do hard things. Like, what the journey is. You've done it before. You can get through this next dark time. And like many themes like that. So I feel like I always kept that on my mirror. And as much as I hate to admit it, like I would always I never like to ask for help, but my husband's been a great support for the ups and the downs. So I do get to come home to a really great support system.
Oh, is your husband also in the same industry? Or?
No. Like he would not be in beverage. He's a lawyer, so really fun stuff.
Okay.
that
okay. Lots of text.
Yes.
Hello everyone, Helen here, and this one is for all the parents out there who have babies that are still in their diapers. If you're a parent, I will be shocked if you haven't experienced a nasty, outrageously unnecessary blowout just yet. We used to experience them, and they were never a good time. But now, with the new and improved Pampers Swaddlers diaper with blowout barrier innovation, Swaddlers prevents up to 100% of leaks, even blowouts. This diaper has a blowout barrier at the back waist to prevent those messy leaks and blowouts, plus dual leak guard barriers at the legs to help protect leaks where they happen most often. Pampers Swaddlers are dermatologist approved by the Skin Health Alliance, hypoallergenic, and free of parabens and latex. Yes, we only want the best for our babies. They're available in sizes newborn to size 8 and now feature designs with new animal characters, Shiloh the elephant and Freddie the duck. How cute! For trusted protection, trust Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand.
I want to hear more about just this Health-Ade journey. What did those initial days of building out Health-Ade look like?
It was gritty, to say the least. I mean, I was personally still working my pharma job. I was going to school and building this nights and weekends. And it was physically taxing because we made everything ourselves. So it was these 2.5 gallon glass jars. We were moving them ourselves. I felt like I was in the best shape of my life. But it was like late night brewing. It was farmers markets on the weekend.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had to work when it's like 5 a.m. And I still had a very active social life. So I was going out to like 1 or 2. So like I was burning, the candle at both ends really.
Wow.
But it was also the most thrilling time. Like even though we had no idea on what the path forward was, it was like one foot in front of the other. It was probably the most like thrilling adrenaline rush in the most physically taxing way. And there were tears and there's blood. I mean, like we don't know machines and yet we're like, utilizing a machine, but like all that stuff happened. So many stories that are like low points, but also when I look back, it's like what made our story real. And something that you can never replicate.
What do you think was the hardest part of this entire journey?
Oh, it was more of the mental and emotional strength to get through certain elements. So, like not knowing if you can make payroll next week, to pay your employees who are like literally laying it on the line. Trying to get and close investments so that you can like fuel the growth because you're out of stock everywhere. And like that's just causing so much stress. So like holding that mental strength, I think was always the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the toll that I took on my health because like my adrenal, I feel like I was in adrenal fatigue and just the burden that you hold in your head. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking, did I forget something? And like, that's just something that entrepreneurs I think choose a little bit. But that was always the toughest, the emotional strife and the mental burden of everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a quick question for your founders. Like, were you guys friends before you guys co-founded Health-Ade?
Yeah. So me and Dinah, we actually met at our first jobs in pharma and we became best friends, just partying in our early 20s together. Justin was
how
actually,
we met. And
it sometimes forms the best thing.
It does.
Yeah.
A little alcohol.
Yeah. It's like you talk about different things. Like, okay, let's take it to reality now.
Yeah.
And then Justin was actually her boyfriend at the time and now husband. And I think the better success of Health-Ade is that we're still best friends and they're still married because lots happens in a business for 11 years. And, I think that's the better success of everything.
Yeah.
How does that work with like, cause are you like equal like founders, basically the three of you, and then their husband and wife combo, where you like, come on, hubby, get out of your lawyer job, gotta join, let's do this. This is like a couple thing. I'm here at third wheeling.
Well, it's funny because I feel like we always had like equal founder everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was either me or Justin and me and Dinah. It was never like them that were together in decision making, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And so I never want to work with my husband in that capacity during that time. I met him in 2016, which was like the throes of Health-Ade. We're like scaling from our old brewery to our current brewery. And so he only knew me as Kombucha Chick when we first started dating.
Kombucha Chick, I love that.
I just think it's okay to keep it that way. And he was just there to give me the conservative, like, did you get a lawyer to check that out? Like, so no need for him to join the beverage world. He was there as a great like support.
I think it's because there's like 3 of you guys. We always say like for us at ABG, it's like, it's so like, we can't imagine doing it alone. Like the stress, just everything in general. So the fact that you have 2 others must have been so like well balanced.
Oh yeah. It's like when you're feeling or having a down day, one of you, there's 2 others to pick you up, right?
Yep,
and like same with us. And it is lonely, the solopreneur, like, and it's not as fun sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? There's maybe more efficient decision making, but it takes away from, I think, the zest of it all.
I agree.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about the challenges of being an entrepreneur in the early days, especially, you mentioned that you were balancing your pharma job when you first started this. Can you describe to us, you shared with us kind of maybe the working struggle of that, but I guess from like a social and family perspective, what was it like sharing with your friends and family that you're going to go from this like cushy pharma sales job and you're like, I want to start a kombucha company, or I'm starting, my own business. Like, what was navigating that like?
Yeah. So I know in business school, I made that decision to do my own thing and quit my job. And as I was seating my friends, they're like, are you going to be able to do that? You're going to make no money. And what I did is I took a $100K student loan out to basically fund my life for 2 years. And if I didn't make it after those 2 years, I said I would get a job. So that's ultimately like how I made it work for myself.
Yeah.
But my friends are like, I don't know if you're going to be able to just live. Like you live large. And I'm like, I'll be fine. Like, I can take care of myself. When I told my parents, that was a whole can of worms because
Yeah.
my dad thought I was depressed and emotionally distraught because he just assumed I'd broken up with someone and making irrational decisions. And my mom also thought I was making irrational decisions. And so she made a spreadsheet of all my like lost wages, opportunity
Oh
my
costs, of,
gosh.
like benefits, 401k. And then they enlisted my sister, who's always like really great in everything. Like
Older or younger?
She's younger and
yeah.
she is, steady job, great everything, does all the right things, works for Amazon, good job.
Yeah.
They enlisted her to be the good cop, to basically like talk to me softly about the decisions I'm making. And I just remember it was right before I was going to go to this club event, and I was at a gas station in Hollywood and Bronson. And I was just crying on the phone with my parents saying like, look, I'm going to do this with or without your support, but you can either be with me or you're against me. And I have faith in myself. I can do this. If not, I have money to live and I'm going to get a job afterwards. Like I'm competent, right?
Yeah.
And so I just quit my job 2 weeks after that. And that was stressful. I felt like Eminem, like palms are sweaty.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to throw up. But after I told my boss at the time in pharma I was going to leave, it was the biggest weight leaving that room ever. And then it was on, right? It was like, okay, Health-Ade is on. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And then never looked back.
How long were you at the pharma job for?
I think like 5 years.
Oh,
4
wow.
years, 5.
Okay.
It was at that point where it's like, okay, do I go down this managerial track, or in business school do I go into like the glamorous world of consulting, which is not that glamorous, by the way. And so that was kind of the crossroads I was in. But I was also inspired to do my own thing, and I wanted to try that.
Yeah. And so your friend was also working with you, Dinah.
Yeah.
So did she also quit at the exact same time or before or after?
She quit like 6 months after me.
So you were the first.
I was the first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I quit, then Justin quit, then Dinah quit. We all
You made
quit.
it easy for them.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
I quit, I remember 2 weeks before their wedding, because I wanted to just hang out in Toronto, have a little vacation. And I had, taken that student loan out. So I had a little bit of cushion. And then, they subsequently quit when they got their lives in order too. So by the end of 2013, we were all into the business.
Dang.
And was it mostly because the sales were growing and you just had a lot of traction? And you're like, okay, this can be a thing.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
exactly that. There was so much demand. We couldn't make enough. We were constantly selling out. It was bursting at the seams. That basically told us, like, if we don't give it the attention it needs, it's just not going to take off, right?
Yeah, it's like a
And
waste
so-
opportunity.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so once we quit our jobs, we're like, oh, it's on, like donkey, like we gotta
On
push
like
this.
donkey
Kong.
Kong.
So,
Love
like
it.
we were pushing it. At
Yeah.
that point. It's
I like feel the energy.
I know.
Let's go. Yeah. Dang. Okay. First off, I love like the tenacity. You're like, I'm gonna do it with or without you. Like you
Yeah.
believed in yourself so fully. That's so amazing. But obviously, Health-Ade is doing amazing, and you guys are like building this. You guys all went full time. Was there a moment when you were like, I think we're like mainstream. I think you really like made it. Like, was there like you saw a celebrity holding it outside of Trader Joe's, or like, what was the moment you thought like, y'all, I think we made it?
Oh, okay. So yes, there were some celebrities. I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. Like the Kardashians, Hailey Bieber and Justin Bieber. Like they're often photographed with Health-Ade. But I think my it moment was when I was driving off of a freeway and I saw Health-Ade litter on the ground. And I saw like a little down the way, like a homeless person drinking Health-Ade. I'm like, all right,
Yes,
like if we're
take care of your
litter
health.
in LA, then I think we've made it. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
that to me
That's
was more of
funny.
like, okay, we're trash now. Like we're on the floor.
You're all over.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Dang.
Who needs Bieber? Who needs?
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
expect that answer, but I don't mind it. That's so funny.
We see ABG merch on the floor. We made it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it'd be sad with a. I don't know.
I know, that's like a waste of good sweatshirt.
Yeah. I'm like, what? That's why I have another tangent about that. But and I think obviously like the three of you guys are like the co-founders, and like it's a lot of pressure. Like, but you're also like an Asian female in the C-suite. Like, can you describe how that how was that like for you? Like the pressures and like the things you learned.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every year, every 6 months, it was a leveling up, right? So
Mm.
like founders don't often become the executives within their company.
Yeah.
And so just because the scale is bigger or they're just not suited for that or they don't want to be that. And
Mhm.
so for us, the brand did need that founder touch kind of throughout those 11 years. And, kind of building and growing with the business took a lot like of self-discovery,
Yeah.
both in the EQ managerial sense, because I never managed anyone before that. So I'm like, oh, I have to put on my leadership hat and like figure out how to really, galvanize the company. So that was a big deal. And then two is I remember in 2017, I spoke at, it was my first Asian Business Association event. And I didn't realize how many Asians own businesses. I mean, obviously they do. I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
And I, for the first time, saw it in front of me. And it was at that moment that I felt like I was representing just like being a role model for people in like growth mode, right? Like people trying to grow in their careers or people trying to build a business. And I don't take that lightly at all. And it was that moment that I just felt like a responsibility to, to give back. And even in our hiring practices, I'm all for hiring the best person, but I'm also thinking like, how do we increase the talent pool? And, given that opportunity as a founder and executive, like how do we look elsewhere where, I mentioned it's very much in the old boys club in beverage and CPG, like how do we diversify our talent pool to make sure we get the best talent vying for the jobs that we need to hire for? So I had that luxury and I just hope that other Asian professionals do as well.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say that I love, like, it's so cool to me that like wrapped up into your career journey is so much of this like identity, looking to know who you are that ties back to your heritage. Because I think what was key to me is like for you, you wouldn't have been able to make the shifts and find the path that you wanted without confronting your relationship with your heritage and your culture. And then just being a woman as well. So I think that to me, that's like a big part of your story that is just so natural and authentic and really beautiful. And I really hope that inspires anyone else out there who might be struggling to figure out their career path to know that they have to kind of do some of these like inner work of confronting yourself.
Yeah, that inner work was a lot. And it was, I did everything from like breath work to coaching to therapy and just journaling. And I'm not a meditator, but you need to do things for your own nourishment. And I needed that at different points in time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you innately were always like a natural born leader?
That's a great question.
So when I was in grade school, I just remember always wanting to be the leader, but always really shy, if that makes sense. So like I would always want to raise my hand to read or do something, but I always felt like really embarrassed and shy. And
like, oh, never mind. Take it back,
so like my arm would be like right here.
Yeah.
So there's a desire, but maybe not the confidence. And so I think that was always in me to a certain extent. And then one time I remember like someone pushed my sister. She's 4 years younger than me. Like, and I was maybe like 10. And so I was like, oh, hell no. And so like, even at that point, I was like, I am going to defend and like what's right. And like, I'm going to show this guy what's up. But so like, there was always in me like this righteousness. But I don't think I gained the confidence until way later.
Okay. Yeah. And then that came out in your like work too, because you were kind of forced to be this leader. Post college, all of a sudden you're like, I'm in this role where I have to be a leader for all of these people.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, public speaking, you have to like set the direction. You have to be strong in the face of like tribulation and trial. And so like, none of those things like you don't like prepare for that. It's kind of like you're thrown into this fire and you figure it out. And so I think some people are suited for that and some people don't love that or don't feel comfortable in that. And that's okay.
Do you feel like that grew over time, that you eventually learned to love it? Or has it always been like a kind of more of a struggle, but like you've always just wanted it?
I think I thrive a little bit on the chaos. Like so right now, I've since left Health-Ade and I'm in this beautiful time of having time with my babies, exploring my purpose. But I realize I'm not a good rester. And so I kind of like this, like I'm doing something. I always have something going on or looking forward to. So that's just in me. And I'm not going to shy away from that anymore. Like I just need to know that about me and kind of work within this system so I don't drive myself crazy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like something that I feel like we relate on a lot is just motherhood. You have a 17-month-old and
3.
A 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh my gosh.
goodness. That's wild.
It feels wild.
That's wild.
Yeah, when you say that, it feels
Yes,
wild.
I love that you're spending more intentional time with them. So, I mean, just you briefly mentioned you left Health-Ade. Was that like a big decision for you, or what was the reason for leaving?
It was a big decision at the time. So our investors actually purchased us a couple years ago. And I think with anything with different type of ownership, it's just a different type of atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Like we're always the founders, but we're no longer, the decision makers, so to speak, in all ways. And I don't do well in that type of situation. And I've learned that about myself. And so when I had my second baby and I came back, I always wanted to be there for the brand to make sure the company was shepherded in the right way through a transition.
Yeah.
But I knew when I came back from having my second baby that it wouldn't be a long-term thing. I just wanted to make sure there was a strong transition with the right leadership and the right person to lead the brand. And me and Dinah left together. And so now, the whole company doesn't have founders involved in the business, which is a big deal in of itself. But I'm also really proud of the team that's still there because it just shows that we built a great system. We built a strong brand, people who feel emboldened enough and empowered to carry the mission forward. And for that, I'm very grateful. And so in that way, it was easy because I really believed in them. But the last couple months, it's been a weird identity shift because for so long, 11 years, people mostly knew me as Health-Ade and the co-founder of Health-Ade.
As
and
your husband did. Kombucha.
Yeah,
Exactly.
kombucha.
Yes, I'm
Kombucha
kombucha
chick.
chick. And so I needed to confirm for myself that I have much more value beyond just my business, which is its own identity confrontation in its own way. And so I've been understanding that part of me and just where my purpose is and where are my next steps. And in the meantime, I've been traveling and just experiencing things with my babies that I'm really thankful for and happy about the flexibility that I have.
Yeah, I mean, incredible that you're able to just fully invest this time with your babies, especially because they're so young right now too. I love that. I love that for you so, so much. How do you feel like you are sort of like re-energizing yourself? And you mentioned like you're trying to find, what is the next thing or this identity crisis? Like, how are you sort of like feeding your soul during this time?
So I'm a big self-care person just in general. I feel like that's a non-negotiable for me. And it can vary, like Korean spa. I like to get my nails done usually. Just like the little things.
Yeah.
But what I have to be intentional about are my manifestation days. So like I used to do this a lot when I was at Health-Ade, and I would do it once a month. I would just take a day to go to my favorite places, whether it be like Malibu, a corner in the Langham Hotel, wherever, like views. I love views. And I would like journal, think about my goals. Where am I? Strategize for the business or myself. And I did that very in a disciplined way with the business. As I left the business, I kind of just assumed that like, oh, I have all this time. I'm just going to manifest every day. But you don't, because things come up, errands come up. You're like meeting this person, you're with ABG, things come up. And so, after June or after May, I came back from one of our trips and I just feeling a little depressed. And so I realized like I missed those manifestation days and kind of my vision setting days for myself. And it was a breakthrough moment for me. And I've had to embed that in regularly. So it's August now. So I've done that now 3 times. And it's fed my soul to just realign me and like keep me core to like the path that I'm on. And it's everything from like my values as like a person, like the goals I set out for myself this year. Like one goal is like I wanted to have like an Oliver date every week and an Audrey date every week. That's just me and them and not our nanny. And so I'm able to do that. Or, I wanted to read 5 books. I'm like only on like little things like that. And like financial goals with my husband. I want to make sure we're on the same page. And so it's just been really important for us to just stay together in that way.
Yeah. I love this.
I know. I was like, I'm going to start applying this.
I'm a big self-care girl myself, but I love the fact that you have set days. Like I'm going to talk about like kind of remind myself and be in touch with my values and my goals to like set the path for what I want next. Actually,
it's very easy to get lost.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get lost, not just in work, but especially like as a mom, it's like so easy to just feel every day there's something going on.
Oh yeah,
you have to be intentional. Yeah,
totally.
You have to be intentional taking time for yourself. Right.
100%.
Yes, this I need to also manifestation days.
Yeah.
Should we all
one?
plan at the same time?
But different
I was
places.
gonna say, like,
Okay.
Yeah.
different corners of a hotel.
Yeah. Oh, I love this.
Yeah,
And they
different
come
corners
together
of
and
it.
drink. Okay. Yeah.
What? Every year, I tell myself to lean into a new hobby, and photography has been on the top of my list for a few years now. Last year, I was able to bring a digital camera to document my travels back to Taiwan for the first time, and it just captured the memory so beautifully. Even though I have my phone on me, capturing photos and videos through a different device just challenges you to look at everything in a different way. As I'm preparing for my upcoming travels to Japan in a few months, I've been looking into options with the Nikon Z8 mirrorless camera being one of them. It has super accurate autofocus, even in low light, and just stunning color straight out of the camera. It requires minimal to zero editing and post-production, which is a huge plus for me. The video capabilities are also unrivaled with options for 8K 60p and 4K 120p. I just can't wait for all the content I can potentially capture with this camera. If you're looking for a camera, definitely check out nikonusa.com/podcastz8. Again, that's nikonusa.com/podcastz8.
The slogan of Health-Ade is to follow your gut. And Vanessa, obviously, when we look at kind of the past that you've had, you definitely followed your gut. For any of our listeners or viewers out there who are struggling a bit to follow their own gut, but they have that sense, kind of like, like they want to raise their hand, but they don't quite have the confidence, or they want to quit their job, but they don't quite have the confidence. What suggestions would you give to them in this point in their life, in that transition period?
Yeah. So, a couple things. Like, I don't think you have to drastically quit your job and like a fiery ending and be like, I'm doing this now. There's a lot of corporate people out there that just want to take stepwise changes. And, for example, LinkedIn, they have so many different like clubs and like ways to interface with different opportunities, whether it be diversity or leadership. So like, dabble. There's no, like, I think being a lifelong learner is just so important. And so like, participating and taking part in those types of learning activities may spark something that you never know. And then for me, like even personally right now, like I'm in a sculpture and ceramics class, and like I am not an art person like that, but it's kind of sparked in me kind of this like creativity that I really enjoy tapping into. So, same way, like if someone wants to tap into their creativity, it's like do an extracurricular after the workday. Like if you want to do something health and wellness related, like try one of your health and wellness recommendations. Like, why not try it? Like, there's no harm in that. And someone said to me, like, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So it's like, if you don't try it, you're never going to know, like fully, right? So why not just dabble while you can? And obviously, when you get older and you have more responsibilities, whether it be family or financial, things color your ability to take those steps. But I'm like, definitely aligned to the idea that where there's a will, there's a way. And so if you and your partner talk about like, I want to do this, how do we make this happen? You'll make it happen. It's just about being on the same page with them.
I love that. Dabble.
Yes.
And being a lifelong learner, because I think oftentimes we start thinking like, I have to find the one thing, and what is my one thing? And maybe there isn't. And, being able to change all the time. And in order to change, you have to kind of try different things. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, I want to kind of take a page from your journaling and ask you a question about your future. I guess, like, what's next for you in terms of, like, do you want to start a new business? Like, what can we be looking forward to?
Yeah. So I have a long list of ideas in my idea book right now. But I have realized that I don't think I advise for a ton of companies, and I love it because I love being kind of in the midst of this journey with entrepreneurs. But I also love being in the midst of just like operating and doing the thing. So I think I do want to start my own thing, but I have very much like PTSD around the food and beverage world. Like now that I know it, I'm like, whoa, I don't want to get back into it. But so I'm thinking about different ideas, anything from like, for example, like I'm trying to think about ways to teach my kids about like money and entrepreneurship, because all they know now is what I would tell them about Health-Ade. But like maybe there could be like a how I built this for like a kid's book or something. Or it ranges to anything like, how do I use AI to help disrupt the beverage industry? So maybe whoever's listening will take those ideas, but like it ranges the gamut of things, from like kids related things to disruption with technology. I'm just trying to find things that align with like my cups and making sure they're filled. So
Yeah.
I still want flexibility. I still want time to do like my non-negotiable, spend time with like my kids. And I'm not trying to kill myself again, like I did with the business with Health-Ade. And so I'm trying to do it in a way that's a lot more smart and something that's aligned to just purpose, which is, you know, my values, staying optimistic, love, family, supporting females and Asian entrepreneurs. Like that is very much where I see the energy and heat map for myself.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, I love that.
What an Asian boss girl. My
Yeah.
goodness. I am so excited. You're going to take over the world.
Oh,
Literally.
literally.
Yes, like from children to AI. Like, it's just, like the spread is ridiculous. But thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. We're going to end this with a few fun questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, favorite Health-Ade flavor?
Oh, okay. So this is hard because it's kind of, they all have its place, but I've always been a spicy type person. I love spicy flavors. And this is one of our original flavors, Cayenne Cleanse. So that's one of my faves.
Okay. How often do you drink Health-Ade? Not one of the questions.
So
but
interestingly,
curious.
I drink it now maybe like once a week. But my husband, kombucha chick has turned him into like a 2-a-day
Kombucha
drinker.
dude.
Yeah.
Yes, he drinks way more than I do now.
Wow.
So we have a regular stock for him.
Okay.
nice.
Okay. Favorite non-Health-Ade beverage for winding down?
Oh, okay. So matcha lattes are just my jam. Anywhere, anytime, matcha lattes. It's just soothing, iced, hot, sweetened, unsweetened, however you want to make it. That's my jam.
Okay. Have you
love
been to
matcha.
Bopomofo Cafe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you get the matcha, the carrot
no,
matcha there?
but I always would get just the regular like milk tea.
Oh, I love the milk tea.
The
The
there.
carrot matcha is great because the
Really?
carrot juice is like a natural
Interesting, yeah.
sweetener, and you would never think of that combo, but
Okay.
it tastes very good.
Yeah.
Okay. What is one thing on your bucket list that you hope to cross off one day?
I want to travel to every continent at some point.
Okay.
Like I think Antarctica obviously is like harder.
Yeah.
but-
Last on the bucket
yeah,
list,
So like
yes.
it's like last.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that in like 18 years when like kids are gone. But like I want to go to every continent.
That's cool.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What would a perfect day look like for you?
Nothing crazy really. It's kind of just like waking up without an alarm clock, like not being like, oh, I have to wake up by 6:30. Just waking up naturally. Having the kids just wake up naturally and it's not a fight, and we have breakfast and just like a normal, like not loud session.
Oh man.
Work out after dropping them off like to school, having lunch with or catching up like time with my best friends. Maybe taking a couple hours with my husband, working on something that really brings me joy, whatever that may be, and just sitting down together with the family. Like it's not crazy. Although I love experiences, I'm always down for experiences. My perfect day is actually quite boring.
Simple though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also core to your values too. All
Yeah.
of those things that you touched upon.
Yeah.
Which I love. Okay, last question. Where can our listeners connect with you?
So I am on Instagram and LinkedIn, Vanessa Dew. Vanessa Dew something. I'm not Vanessa. I think it's Vanessa Dew on LinkedIn and Vanessa Dew on Instagram.
DEW do.
Yeah,
Yes.
DEW. Vanessa DEW.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
Thank
Oh
you
my
for your
gosh.
story.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us, Vanessa, and sharing your story. I personally was very inspired through multiple parts, and I'm sure a lot of listeners and viewers out there were as well. And then if you want to get in contact with Vanessa, look up Vanessa Dew on LinkedIn or Instagram. And I don't know, is there any last parting words that you want to leave?
Let's see, parting words. I guess it's something that I said earlier in the podcast. It's like, if you never ask, the answer is always no. And I think it goes for everything, like asking a girl for a number, like asking for a raise at your job, like asking to be participating in whatever group you're trying to participate in.
Yeah.
You're never going to know if you just don't ask.
Love that. Thank you so much. Once again, we are Asian Boss Girl. We have episodes that come out every Thursday and also Tuesdays on our mini show. You can find us on every podcasting platform. And if you do, please give us a follow, give us a subscribe, leave us a review. That really helps us out. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll catch you all on the next episode. Bye.